The following text is adapted from Lewis Carroll's 1889 satirical novel Sylvie and Bruno. A crowd has gathered outside a room belonging to the warden, an official who reports to the Lord Chancellor. One man, who was more excited than the rest, flung his hat high into the air and shouted, as well as I could make out, "Who roar for the Sub-Warden?" Everybody roared, but whether it was for the Sub-Warden or not did not clearly appear. Some were shouting, "Bread!" and some, "Taxes!" but no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted. All this I saw from the open window of the warden's breakfast saloon, looking across the shoulder of the Lord Chancellor. "What can it all mean?" he kept repeating to himself. "I never heard such shouting before, and at this time of the morning too, and with such unanimity." Based on the text, how does the Lord Chancellor respond to the crowd? A. He asks about the meaning of the crowd's shouting, even though he claims to know what the crowd wants. B. He indicates a desire to speak to the crowd, even though the crowd has asked to speak to the Sub-Warden. C. He expresses sympathy for the crowd's demands, even though the crowd's shouting annoys him. Or D. He describes the crowd as being united, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise.
Number 10. The following text is adapted from Lewis Carroll's 1889 satirical novel Sylvie and Bruno. The situation is such that there is a crowd which has gathered outside a room belonging to the warden. And this warden is a person, he is an official who reports to the Lord Chancellor. Some chaos is happening. One man who was more excited than the rest flung his hat. This man, he was very excited and he flung his hat high into the air. And he was also shouting, as well as I could make out, "Who roar for the Sub-Warden?" Everybody roared, but whether it was for the Sub-Warden or not did not clearly appear. And some were shouting bread, some were shouting taxes. It was not one word and they were just randomly saying some words. But no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted. So it was not a very unanimous one thing they were telling. It was just very random things. All this I saw from the open window of the warden's breakfast saloon, looking across the shoulder of the Lord Chancellor. And here the Lord Chancellor is asking, what can it all mean? He kept repeating to himself, I never heard such shouting before, and at this time of the morning too. So he's wondering what is happening outside and with such unanimity. And however, he is not having a proper idea. He thinks they're all shouting the same thing, they have the same idea, and what can it all mean? But he doesn't know what it is. But he thinks it's just one particular topic. So based on the text, how does the Lord Chancellor respond to the crowd? Is he going and talking to them, or is he just thinking about? So over here, it just seems that he is thinking to himself. He is repeating something to himself, and he's trying to analyze. So which should we choose? So if you say D, that is correct. He describes the crowd as being united, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. So he has made up something in his mind and he thinks the crowd is talking about just one topic, but that's why he says unanimity. He's thinking, but he is not actually telling. He just describes the crowd as being united, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. Choice D is the best answer because it presents a statement about how the Lord Chancellor responds to the crowd that is supported by the text. The text indicates that the people in the crowd are roaring and shouting bread or taxes, and presents them as not knowing what they really want. The Lord Chancellor's response is to ask what their shouting means, but also to observe that they are shouting with unanimity or total agreement. Clearly, this isn't the case, which supports the statement that Lord Chancellor describes the crowd as being united even though it's not. He thinks they are united, but they are actually not. They are just shouting random things.
Choice A is incorrect because it isn't supported by the text. Although the text indicates that the Lord Chancellor asks about the meaning of the crowd's shouting, it doesn't suggest that he knows what the crowd really wants. Choice B is incorrect because the text doesn't suggest that the Lord Chancellor wants to speak to the crowd. Furthermore, the text doesn't indicate that the crowd wants to hear from the Sub-Warden. Although the crowd roars when asked, "Who roar for the Sub-Warden?" it's unclear what the roaring means. Choice C is incorrect because the text doesn't suggest that the Lord Chancellor knows of or sympathizes with the crowd's demands. In addition, the text doesn't indicate that the crowd's shouting annoys the Lord Chancellor, just that it causes him to keep repeating, "What can it all mean?"